Yo, what's up, everybody? My name is Jake Demai, and guys, this is going to be a really cool video because I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know to start a bookkeeping from scratch, even if you have no experience. In fact, this video is for those of you who don't have any experience. You want to get your foot in the game. You want to learn how to start your own business because you've been itching to be self-employed. If you've been an employee for a long time, I was an employee for a long time. If you've been an employee, then you know how rough it is. It is hard to be told what to do. It's hard to be told what to wear. It's hard to be told where to work and what projects to work on. And so if you're like me, you want to be self-employed because you want to spend more time with your family. You want to have more control over your income. You want to have more control over all of the pieces, all the cracks of your life. Because for me, I was done with being told how to live my life. Unfortunately, your career is a big part of your life, and that's the part of your life that you need to take control of. And so in this video, I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know about how to start a bookkeeping company and how to do it the right way. I started my bookkeeping company with some CPA experience. I passed all my CPA exams. I didn't become a CPA, but I did have public accounting experience before I started my bookkeeping company, and that really helped. But I will say that you don't necessarily need to have the same experience that I had or any experience at all. I really think that you can do this, and I'm going to walk you through what you need to know and how you can get there and how you can start your business today. After this video, you can start your business today, and I just think it'll be the best decision you will ever make. So if you have any questions, guys, please leave them in the comments. Before we even get started, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to this channel. I'm a new YouTuber, and I'm figuring this out. And so let's jump in. So 5 steps, guys, 5 steps to starting your bookkeeping company with no experience. Step number 1 is learn, okay? You need to learn bookkeeping. You need to learn how to do the job. You need to know accounting. You need to know QuickBooks, okay? There's a lot of ways you can learn it, and I'm just gonna break it down for you and how you can get started. Now, like I said, I had accounting experience. And so that's one way you could do it. If you want to play the long game, if you want to do it basically the right way and maybe the easiest way to have somebody train you, and you have time, then I would recommend working at a public accounting firm, at a CPA firm. Maybe it's doing taxes, maybe it's just doing bookkeeping, but I would work at a CPA firm to get that experience, maybe 2 or 3 years. That's maybe my first advice. If you don't have time for that, if you don't want to do that, then there are a few things you can do for free. One, you can watch these YouTube videos. There's a guy, Zach Pasquarello on YouTube, the bookkeeping expert. He has really good content out there. There's tons of content on YouTube. I would look at all that content, and I would really try to get to the bottom of how to start this bookkeeping business and the basics of accounting. One other tip I would give is to do your own bookkeeping for your personal life. And so you can create your own QuickBooks account, and it's free. You can set up a QuickBooks Online accountant subscription, and you can connect your personal bank and credit card accounts to that QuickBooks. And in there, you can actually do your own bookkeeping. You can set up your own profit and loss and balance sheet, your own chart of accounts, and you can learn how to do the bookkeeping with no pressure of getting it right. You can just kind of mess around with it and play around with QuickBooks, and that might be the best way to really get a feel for how to do it. And another way, guys, is just to jump right in. And that's kind of what I'm going to recommend in this video, is to jump right in with bookkeeping. And maybe in the beginning, guys, maybe you offer to do bookkeeping for free or for a really low cost. Maybe you have a close friend or family. Although I would maybe try to stay away from family members in the beginning because you just don't want to mess this up. It can sour relationships. It can kind of be awkward if you're working with close family and you're in their personal finances, because let's be honest, personal finances are a little bit hairy. And when you work with a business owner, you're basically looking at their personal finances. A business owner has a hard time keeping those things separate. And so when you jump into bookkeeping for a business owner, you're basically going to see everything behind the curtain. And so working with a really close family member or friend, then it gets a little tricky. I would recommend working with the friend that you don't see every week, or the friend that maybe the friends you have on Facebook that you aren't actually friends with. Those are the people that you want to target first, and those are the people that you might want to offer free bookkeeping to in the beginning. And I wouldn't necessarily say you have to do it for free, but it might just be a good way for you to get that experience and to kind of jumpstart the process. Another thing you guys can do is in QuickBooks, there's a ProAdvisor program. So once you set up that QuickBooks Online accountant subscription, you can go to the ProAdvisor trainings, and they have like a whole Intuit Learning Academy. Go through there and learn QuickBooks, because really there's two things you need to learn. You need to learn QuickBooks, and you need to learn how to use the bank feed, how to look at reports, how to, just how to operate QuickBooks, and the things that you need, and the things you need to know, and the things you don't need to know in QuickBooks. And you also need to know accounting. You need to know the reports. You need to know what a profit and loss is, what a balance sheet is, what a chart of accounts is. You need to know your debits and credits, and you need to know how it flows, how transactions work, because what a lot of people don't understand is the function of accounting. It's almost like it's kind of like a formula, but it's more of like a language. When you buy or sell something, there's more going on than meets the eye. For example, when you purchase when you buy something for your business, let's say it's a new microphone for your business, your bank account goes down, right? Because let's say you spent $50 on this microphone, your bank account goes down, and then the result is an expense on your profit and loss. So let me break that down in more detail, guys, because the reports are really important. So there's really 5 things you need to learn about accounting in QuickBooks. The first thing is the reports, the profit and loss. Your profit and loss statement, this is the statement that everyone's gonna look at. This is the statement that's gonna make the most sense to you. This is also called an income statement. And this is gonna show your income minus your expenses, and it's gonna show your profit. And so it's super easy to understand. That's how most people think is in terms of an income statement. And honestly, that's what most business owners are gonna look at when you do the bookkeeping for a business. They're gonna look at that, and they're gonna trust that it's accurate. And what's fun about the profit and loss is it can be kind of whatever you want it to be. It can be as simple or as detailed as you want. I recommend to my business owners that you keep it simple. And what I mean by that is when you set up the chart of accounts, and the chart of accounts is basically the different categories for your profit and loss and balance sheet. And the chart of accounts is fun to work with, because you can just use a template if you want, or you can make it your own, and you can create your own categories based on what you think is most understandable to the business owner. And so if you're a new bookkeeper, and let's say maybe you've even been in the business world a little bit before, or your experience is limited, that actually kind of works to your benefit, because you kind of understand what you don't know. And you can maybe explain to a business owner who also doesn't know accounting, you can explain to them how the books work and what the categories mean. And so you can label things and you can name things in a more easily understandable way. You don't have to call things by these fancy accounting terms. I fall prey to the accounting language, and I start throwing out terms that people don't understand. And I wasn't that way in the beginning, but now I've been in the business for 10 years and I'm using terms that are just difficult for people to understand. You are new to the business and you don't understand anything. And so as you understand it, you're just closer to that business owner, honestly, because you know what you don't know. So the profit and loss, super important. The balance sheet. The balance sheet is the statement that nobody understands, especially the new business owner, and especially the person that maybe didn't go to school for accounting or doesn't have experience in accounting at all. The balance sheet is super important. The reason it's super important is because everything that shows up on the profit and loss has to first run through the balance sheet, okay? So like I used that example before about the microphone that you bought. Now your balance sheet shows you your assets and your liabilities. And what's in your assets, typically for a small business, it's just gonna be like your bank accounts, maybe your car that you use for the business, and your accounts receivable. That's typically what I see on a balance sheet for your assets. And then on your liabilities, it's usually just gonna be like a couple credit cards that they have. It's gonna show the debt that they owe on their credit cards. And then it's gonna show any kind of other loans. And then it's gonna show the equity section, which shows like your owner's draws, which are basically your personal expenses, and your retained earnings, which is, don't get confused about retained earnings. Retained earnings is basically a plug for your assets minus your liabilities. Retained earnings, honestly, it doesn't mean anything. And maybe I'll get flack for that. Maybe it does mean more than I realize, but Ultimately, your retained earnings is just a plug. It's your assets minus your liabilities. That's it. You don't have to like read into that or worry about that too much. But your equity section will show your owner's draws and maybe your owner's like investments into the company. But I say all that because your assets, if you buy like a microphone for 50 bucks, your assets are going to go down. And why do I say that? It's because your cash and your checking account went down when you purchased this for 50 bucks. So your bank account goes down by $50. And so that's what's happening on the balance sheet. But then on the profit and loss, your expense shows up as a $50 expense. So there's two sides of it, right? That's the part that people don't understand, is that there's two sides, and the profit and loss and the balance sheet work in tandem. Transactions can be on the balance sheet or the profit and loss. And so if you only look at the profit and loss, you don't see the full picture. And if the balance sheet is wrong, then your profit and loss is wrong. So you have to understand both. And that's going to be the part, in my opinion, that you as a new bookkeeper need to get your head around. You need to understand the balance sheet, and you need to understand it soon if you want to be able to do bookkeeping. And so that's kind of that's reporting. The second thing is the chart of accounts, like I mentioned. If you go to QuickBooks, you can go to the settings icon, the gear icon, go to chart of accounts, and QuickBooks will give you a bunch of recommended categories that they recommend. I would feel free to use those. A couple of points, a couple of things to maybe do and not do with your chart of accounts. Don't make it too detailed. QuickBooks will give you all of these categories that you just really don't need. Like, for example, for travel and auto, do you need a category for your car wash or for your oil change and your registrations and your, and for gas, or maybe you want one for gas, but like QuickBooks will give you like 10 different categories under travel and auto. I would recommend just putting it all under a couple categories. Maybe have one for gas, have one for parking, and have one for repairs and maintenance, and call it a day. Don't go crazy with having too much detail, because ultimately it just makes it more confusing for the business owner and harder for you as a bookkeeper. So the chart of accounts, have fun with it, make it your own, and don't overthink it. You can always tweak it as you go. And then you don't necessarily need to have account numbers. Account numbers look really nice. I don't use account numbers for all of my clients, but it can be a nice way to like organize your chart of accounts and your profit and loss so that things show up in the order that you want them to show up in. So that's chart of accounts. The third thing that you need to learn is the bank feed. And so I talked about the accounting and the profit and loss, the balance sheet, and the chart of accounts. The bank feed in QuickBooks is the name of the game, okay? If you're gonna play this QuickBooks bookkeeper game, it starts in the bank feed, okay? And what's the bank feed? The bank feed is how you connect your credit card and bank accounts to QuickBooks. So QuickBooks is awesome. 20 years ago, you weren't able to do this, but now you can automate some things by automatically having QuickBooks download the transactions into QuickBooks and having them show up in the bank feed. And the bank feed is where you're going to assign every transaction to a bucket, to a category. And so it's either going to be on the balance sheet or it's going to be on the profit and loss. And so the bank feed is tricky because there's a couple things that really trip people up. The expenses, honestly, are super easy and easy to understand. Let me take a water break real quick. The expenses really are self-explanatory. I talked about like the auto expenses. I talked about like parking and whatnot. Like that kind of stuff is easy. You see an expense on the bank feed and you know exactly what it's for. But there are a few things that are tricky. Number one are deposits in the bank feed. Deposits are super difficult because deposits have to be matched properly. Now, most of the businesses that I work with, the business owners use QuickBooks for invoicing. And what I mean by that is they use the function, they create an invoice that they send to the customer. So let's say they repair and maintain pools. So when they go to do a job and they do the repair on the pool, they'll send their customer an invoice. And back in the old days, they used to just give a sheet of paper to the customer, and the customer would give them either cash or a check. But nowadays, it's super automated, and an invoice can get sent by email, and the business owners will use QuickBooks to send those invoices to customers. And so that's what the business owner does. They create the invoices, they send them out, and they collect the payments. What we as bookkeepers do is we have to match the deposit to that invoice to show that the invoice was cleared. And so a lot of times people will pay with a credit card, which makes it super easy. QuickBooks, there's a way that QuickBooks automatically applies the payment to the invoice. But if a customer pays by check or cash, then it gets tricky. And that's where the deposits become really challenging, because if you apply the deposit to the wrong invoice, then you're in trouble. Okay, so the deposits are tricky. Or if there's a deposit that's not really sales, like let's say they get a loan proceed from the bank and like $50,000 gets deposited into their bank account, that's not income. And so you don't want to treat it as income. That's going to be a loan. And so you have to understand your deposits in the bank feed. Don't blindly just assign it to sales. You have to make sure that there aren't open invoices to, that need it to be applied. There are a number of clients that I have that don't use invoicing in QuickBooks. If that's the case, then the deposits become significantly more simple. And all you need to do is, if you can identify that it's for sales, if the deposit really was a sale for the business, then it just goes to the income category and you don't need to match it. Another tricky thing that people get tripped up on is the transfers and credit card payments. If you see a transfer between bank accounts, you have to make sure that it's matched and paired properly. If you don't match or pair it properly, then the reconciliation process, which I'll get into later, is going to be super challenging and it's not going to make sense. And so whenever you make a credit card payment with your business account, you have to apply it to the credit card that's also connected to the bank feed. If you don't, it'll just get duplicated and it'll be a problem. So transfers. The other thing is personal expenses. Most business owners will use QuickBooks and they will intermingle their personal finances with the business. It's a huge no-no, and I shut it down right away after I onboard a client. But sometimes it's unavoidable. Sometimes the business owner doesn't listen and they continue to use their business card for personal expenses. And most of the time it's obvious, but sometimes it's not. And so you have to ask the client sometimes if, for more detail on certain transactions. If let's say they bought, they got a massage, and it's obvious that it was from a salon or whatever, then what that personal expense would go to their owner's draws category on their balance sheet. It doesn't get placed on the profit and loss at all. And for those expenses that you're not sure about, whether they're personal or not, I place everything that I'm not sure about in the bank feed in uncategorized expense. I use that category that QuickBooks already has set up. And as I'm working through the bank feed, I just start at the top and I work my way down. And if I'm not sure about it, I put it to uncategorized expense. And after I'm finished with the monthly bookkeeping, I'll send a list of the uncategorized expenses to the client, and they will add a note next to each transaction to let me know what it's for. It's unavoidable. Whenever you work with bookkeeping, there are going to be expenses that you're not sure about, that you don't know. And so for those, don't guess. Don't pretend like you know what they're for. Go to the client, ask the client, because they're going to know right away. And they're not going to question your abilities if you're not sure about a transaction. They're just going to tell you straight up what it's for. And so that's what I would do. So that's the bank feed. Those are some of the things I would look out for. The next thing you need to do in QuickBooks, and the next thing you need to learn in QuickBooks, is reconciliations, bank reconciliations. If you're not familiar with that term, I would recommend looking up another YouTube video, or maybe I'll do a YouTube video pretty soon on how to do reconciliations. It's really, really easy. But the first step is adding the transactions in the bank feed for that month. When you're done that month, then you take the bank statement from their bank account. You take their bank statement and you look at the beginning and ending balance, and you enter that beginning and ending balance in QuickBooks within the reconciliation function in QuickBooks. You take the beginning and ending balance, and then you put in the ending date. And what you're doing is you're comparing what the bank says, where your total transactions and the total amount of your transactions, with what QuickBooks has. Because let's face it, there can be mistakes that are made. Sometimes the bank feed doesn't work perfectly. And so what the bank reconciliation does is it ensures that nothing has been duplicated or missed in QuickBooks. It's really important that all bank accounts and credit card accounts get reconciled. If you're not reconciling, then you just can't be confident that your bank accounts are accurate. And when you do the reconciliations, sometimes there are going to be uncleared transactions that didn't clear the bank, and that's fine. If there's a check that the client sent out and they put it in QuickBooks, and it didn't clear the bank for at the close of the month, and it's kind of sitting there for more than maybe 15, 20 days. That's okay. Maybe alert the client to the check. But if there's like an uncleared transaction in the bank reconciliation, like you didn't check the box to mark it as reconciled, then you have a problem and you need to get to the bottom of it, and you need to either delete the transaction or match it properly. That's usually what's happening, is it's not matched or it's duplicated. So that's reconciliations. And then the last thing, guys, is learning how to review the balance sheet and profit and loss. Look at the accounts receivable aging summary. The accounts receivable aging summary basically just shows you the client's open invoices and how old those invoices are. And so understanding the accounts receivable is important. The accounts payable is the same as accounts receivable, but it shows you the bills that you owe and the bills that are outstanding that the company owes. A lot of my clients don't use accounts payable. It's not usually a function that's used, and so you probably don't need to worry about it. And then the other thing is, tying out the loans and basically making sure that everything on the balance sheet ties to something. So the reconciliation process is super helpful for the bank and credit card accounts, but there's going to be other things that show up on the balance sheet that are going to kind of look fishy or you're not going to understand. And it's going to be important for you to get to the bottom of those things too. So it's undeposited funds, it's uncategorized assets, it's loans that are negative, it's inventory that just isn't right, whatever it is. You have to understand the balance sheet and understand every single category in there, because the balance sheet typically holds transactions that, like a lot of things that are missed are hanging out in the balance sheet in an account that should have been on the profit and loss. So guys, I spent a lot of time on learning QuickBooks, and there's so much I could go into on this. The biggest thing, guys, is don't overcomplicate it. Get excited about it. Watch YouTube videos like this. Maybe read some books. Try to understand business and try to understand accounting. Do the best you can. The next thing you do, once you have kind of figured it out, the basics of accounting in QuickBooks, then you need to launch your company, okay? Before you even set up your website and your logo and your business name, my recommendation, and it might not be other people's recommendations, but for me, I say go for it and launch today or tomorrow, whenever you get that QuickBooks understanding or the accounting understanding. Post on social media. And the reason I say to post on social media is because it takes 2.5 months to 3 months to get that first client. It can even take longer than that. You need to be patient and you need to start right away. The quicker you start letting people know about your bookkeeping company, the sooner you will get clients. And if you wait until you have all of the complicated things figured out, it'll be too late and it'll draw things out too far. You'll get burnout and then you'll never start this thing. My recommendation is post a simple post on Facebook and LinkedIn. Block your current employer and post a simple post saying, hey guys, I'm starting a bookkeeping company. I know this might be a surprise to a lot of people, but I love working with business owners. I love bookkeeping. I love keeping business owners organized, and I'm starting a bookkeeping business. If you know anybody who wants to hire a bookkeeper, or if you yourself want to hire a bookkeeper, feel free to reach out to me. I would make a simple post like that. And I would try to post either every day or at least 3 times a week about your bookkeeping business. And you will be surprised on social media how many leads you might get from that. You're going to get like friends and family, like I talked about, and that's okay as long as they're not too close to you. And then after you've launched it, it'll kick in this instinct to follow through. And you will not want to let down your social media following, and you will create that business. That's step number 3, is creating the business. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of things that you want to figure out about your business. And maybe you've already thought through some of these things, but what's your business name going to be? I would recommend that your name be simple. I would recommend that the name have the word bookkeeping in it. And so if you're located in, I live in Winona, New Jersey. And so it's a town that's recognizable. So I named my bookkeeping company Winona Bookkeeping. Maybe you want your name to be on it. And so maybe it's DMI Bookkeeping. But whatever it is, guys, I would keep it simple. I wouldn't overcomplicate it. Don't make it like a general name like, Business Advisors, LLC or whatever. Make it specific. When someone sees your name, they need to know exactly what you offer so that it's not confusing. And then, you can have fun with the name. You can have fun with the logo. And I would also create a website. And so start working on your own website. I used WordPress and Elementor within WordPress to create my website. I had zero website experience. I didn't create a website before I made my own, but I would recommend just doing a one-page website, and I would have fun with that as well. I watched a couple YouTube videos on how to do it, what domain, how to purchase a domain, how to connect it to the website, how to turn on the website, how to drag and drop and customize it to the kind of website that I wanted. And with ChatGPT, it just makes it super easy. And so create that website. And then after you do the business name and the logo and the website, do the and I say complicated stuff because I put in quotes because it's really not that complicated, but do this stuff next. Okay. Create the LLC. Okay. Creating the LLC, it might sound complicated, but just talk to ChatGPT about how to do it. That's the first step. Before you do the EIN, before you do the bank account, you need to create an LLC. So to make sure that first of all, that your name is available. So you want to make sure that the name you picked is available. And you'll find that out when you create the LLC in your state. And you can't create a bank account until you have that LLC. So create the LLC. It's like $75 to $100, one-time fee that you have to pay. And then create the EIN number. And I say to do the EIN number after the LLC because if you do the EIN number first, you can kind of use whatever name you want. And so if you pick the wrong name in the EIN and then you find out it's not available when you go to do the LLC, then it can cause a headache. So do the LLC first and then the EIN, and then go to your bank and ask to open up a business bank account. And when you first start a business, you just need one business checking account. That's fine. But I follow the profit first method. And the profit first method, if you don't know the profit first method, I highly recommend reading the book Profit First by Mike Michalowicz or something. I don't think I pronounced his last name right, but it's called Profit First. And basically you set up like 5 bank accounts. That's what I have now. And every time I make money, every time income comes into my account, I divide that income into 5 different buckets. It's just a nice, easy way for me to kind of view the health of my business from bank accounts alone. And so that's one recommendation I would make. So do the LLC, the EIN, the bank accounts, and then let's talk about business insurance. I think business insurance is kind of a scam for bookkeepers. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a little bit of a risky personality. But if you're an LLC and you're just starting your business, do you really need business insurance in the beginning? Like let's say someone sues you, which I've never been sued. I don't think you're going to be sued, but let's say someone does sue you. As an LLC, they can only access your business assets. And so if you don't really have any business assets because you just started your business, then honestly, the risk is little. If you don't have insurance, it's not a big deal. And you don't need expensive insurance. You don't need general liability, business liability insurance. You don't need workers' comp insurance if you don't have employees. All you need, and once you get going, like right now I have errors and omissions insurance, and it's pretty cheap. I think it's $25 a month. I'll have to double check that. Someone questioned me on my other video. But errors and omission insurance just protects you from like really big mistakes. But I wouldn't recommend getting insurance until your business is definitely established. Once you have a few clients, then pay the money for the insurance. You really don't want to dish out a lot of money on this new, let's face it, it's a hobby in the beginning. This business is a hobby until it makes money, until it's profitable. And so you don't want to waste a lot of money on this hobby or on this business until the business starts making money. Let the business pay for itself. That's just a general principle I follow. Let the business pay for itself, then get the expensive stuff, then get the updated website, then get your logo refined, whatever that is, let the business pay for itself. And then another thing you want to do is kind of define your business. And so as you're creating the business, what kind of business do you want to be? I have other videos on like what kind of business you should be. As a bookkeeping business, you don't want to get into the weeds of the admin stuff. You don't want to do more than what's required of you. You basically want to do the bare minimum. You want to be the most profitable you can be, and you want to add the most value you can possibly add. And so in my opinion, it's QuickBooks management and financial statement delivery. So that's what you do, and that's what I would really try to define and understand as you're starting your business is what exactly are you providing, and what software. So the software that I use exclusively is QuickBooks Online. And I wouldn't recommend using any other software but QuickBooks Online. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't use all these stupid little softwares that have been unproven that nobody uses. Every business owner uses QuickBooks Online. It's just, I think out of the 1,000 business owners probably that have reached out to me, maybe 2 of them have used softwares that are not QuickBooks related. Now, I've had a number of clients come to me with QuickBooks Desktop, and I've converted them to QuickBooks Online. But I convert everybody to QuickBooks Online, and almost everybody that comes to me anyway is already using QuickBooks Online. So don't waste your time using another software. And then another thing you want to do as you're creating the business is define your pricing. What do you want your pricing to look like? I recommend doing, and actually I don't even recommend, I am going to tell you, stick to a fixed flat fee for your pricing. Don't fall to prey to hourly billing. It is not, it's not ideal because you don't want someone to question your time. You don't want to reveal how much time it actually took you. You want to charge based on the value that you're providing. And the best way to do that is with a fixed fee. It provides significant more stability to your company, more predictability for your company. And it's just the most profitable way for you to run a business. You're not penalized for being efficient. And it's significantly better for the customer too, because they are not going to be surprised with a big bill, randomly if you're doing an hourly, monthly job. So define your pricing. So once you've created your business, once you've launched it and people are reaching out to you, how do you onboard clients? And this is a scary part. And let's be honest, guys, one of the most intimidating parts of owning a bookkeeping business in the beginning is talking to business owners. And so let me just walk you through the process that I follow. Typically what happens is somebody will call me. They'll call me on the phone. They'll say, hey, Jake, I heard about your bookkeeping company. We're thinking about hiring you as our bookkeeper. Can you answer a few of our questions? And typically what I do is I respond with questions. And so I have the customer basically do the majority of the talking. I ask them why they're looking for a bookkeeper. What was wrong with their previous bookkeeper if they had one? I ask them about their business, when they started it, what they're looking for in the bookkeeping and some of the things that are hard for them to understand. And I don't really try to do a lot of talking unless they ask me for, about specific questions. I try not to reveal too much. Now, I understand QuickBooks better than anybody. I understand accounting better than anybody. So I'm not afraid to answer those questions. But generally, just as a general principle, people love to hear themselves talk. Most people. I don't like to hear myself talk, but most people like to hear themselves talk. So ask questions, talk to them about their business. Business owners love to talk about their business. And so let them talk about the thing that they love. And so what I do in that first phone call, the number one thing I ask for, before I ask for anything else, is I ask for access to their QuickBooks Online account. And they do this by going to manage users, and they go to accounting firms, and they add me as an accounting firm. And once I have access to their QuickBooks, then I give them a proposal via email. And so they might ask about pricing, they might ask about details. I wouldn't give them too much information about your pricing. You can give them like generally what you charge on a month-to-month basis. But I would deliver the proposal via email after you have access to their QuickBooks. And so after that phone call, you get the email invite, you review their QuickBooks, and that's where you figure out the quote, how much you're going to charge for either the cleanup or the monthly bookkeeping. And the monthly bookkeeping price, it's tricky. It's hard to price it out. I would recommend in the beginning, you don't want to overcharge, especially in the beginning, because you don't want to lose a client. And so I would undercharge. I would just do a $300 flat fee. Just do $300 per month. It's pretty easy for a client to take that on. Now, if it's a big business and they're doing more than $1 million in sales, or even more than $500,000 or $750,000 in sales, then maybe you need to revisit that number. Maybe it's $500 a month that you need to charge. But if they're under $500,000, then just charge $300 a month, and that will be fine. You can always adjust it later on. You can always talk, if you're like spending a ton of time with the client, you can always just have an honest conversation with them and tell them that you need to increase the price. Most people understand that. But I would look at their QuickBooks, and I would look at their total sales. I would look at their accounts receivable. I would look at their balance sheet. and I would come up with a proposal. And I deliver that proposal in two ways. What I would recommend to you is to just send a simple email and say, hey, I really enjoyed talking to you on the phone today. I wanted to give you a little bit of information about my services and my pricing. And what I typically do is I provide like a diagnostic. And you might not have a lot of experience with QuickBooks, and so you don't have to provide a diagnostic. But what I do is I provide just some of my thoughts on their QuickBooks, my commentary on their QuickBooks. I explain some of the issues that I'm seeing on their balance sheet, things that I can fix. And then I talk to them about the pricing, and I give them their cleanup fee if they have a cleanup that's needed. And then I give them my monthly quote for how much it's going to cost them on a monthly basis. And then I tell them to basically, I ask them to either give me the green light or the red light, whether they want to move forward with me or not. And so that's the email. If they say yes to that email, then you have your first client, and that's awesome. I love getting new clients. The next thing is to create another email, and I call this my onboarding email. And my onboarding email is basically, I kind of hype them up and I say, welcome to the team, super excited to work with you. It's gonna be a little bit of work for you in the beginning, but once I have the information that I need, then it will be smooth and efficient going forward. So I ask for a few things. I ask for access to their bank and credit card accounts, view-only access. I want my own login, so I can log in, I can download bank statements, I can view check images, and I can view deposit images. It's super important. It gives you 95% of the information that you need to do the bookkeeping. I ask for access to their payroll company. So a lot of companies allow you the client to add an accountant to their payroll company. So like ADP or Paychex. Get access to that. You might not understand, what you're going to do with it, but you want access to the payroll company so that you can break down the payroll as it comes in. You're going to want to ask for access to their third-party processing, like credit card processing platform. So maybe it's like Toast, or maybe it's Square, or maybe it's like a software that you haven't heard of, but you want to get access so that you can understand the deposits and the fees that break down the deposits. And then I ask for any other spreadsheets that they might have access to that would give me information that would be helpful for me. And so once I have all that, I also ask for the business tax return that they have, their most recent business tax return. I ask for maybe like a sales tax return if they have one. And what else do I ask for? That's pretty much it. So once I have that information, then it is sending that to the client, and usually you have to help the client with that. And I try to book a call with the client within a week or two, like a quick meeting to kind of get to know the business and to help them give me the information that I need to get started. And so that's what I do. So guys, that's the process. This is a very long video, maybe my longest ever, I don't know. But the next thing, I guess the last thing I want to say is once you have the business set up, and once you start getting clients, then you have to be patient. And as you're being patient, optimize. Build your business better and better each month. The one thing I loved about my business when I started it is it took me 18 months to grow it, to start it from scratch, to be able to quit my full-time job. And so what that allowed me to do was it allowed me to be hyper-focused on creating the most efficient process. And I got like 1, maybe 2 clients per month for those first 18 months, which was honestly a great pace because it gave me 1 month to learn the client, to really dive into the detail, to work at nights and the mornings as I'm working my full-time job. And, if I had gotten like 10 clients all at once, I think it would have been too overwhelming. And I think I would have dropped the ball and I would have been, a little bit burnt out right away. But when you get 1 or 2 clients per month, it allows you to really develop your process for each client. And you can think about your business, you can refine your process, you can work on your website, and you can build this business slowly. And that's what I recommend, guys. Just be patient, work hard, get excited about it. And if you are patient, if you can stick with it, you will not be disappointed. It will change your life forever. I now have a business that's making over $200,000 in profit. And, as somebody who was an employee making $70,000, $80,000 a year, you can as you can imagine, going from 80,000 to 200,000, it just allows you to breathe. It really does help significantly, especially if you're raising a family. I'm a sole income earner in our family. My wife gets to stay home with our kids. And it just has made a world of a difference for us as a family. And so that's why I'm passionate about this, is because it's changed my life. I want it to change yours too. I want you to take the leap. I want you to do the things I talked about. And if you do it, you will be so proud of yourself. So guys, thank you for listening. If you made it this far, I'll continue to post videos. Again, subscribe to this channel and I would really appreciate it. Like this video if you liked it, and I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks.